Lock him up. Lock him up. That's the chant coming from the White House regarding former President Barack Hussein Obama, who apparently led the entire operation to falsely accuse President Donald Trump of colluding with Russia when they knew, and he knew specifically, there was no Russian collusion, something that we all found out much later on. Before we get to that story, though, we should point out that it has been exactly 6 months, and today marking 1 day, since President Donald Trump returned to office, and the liberal news networks are none too thrilled about all the things he's done in those first 6 months.
Wow. A lot can happen in just 6 months. Today marks half a year since President Trump took office again. And already his second term is shaping up to be even more consequential than his first. The president has followed through on promises to ramp up deportations, impose tariffs, target his political enemies, including the news media, reduce the federal bureaucracy, and slash U.S. aid to foreign countries.
Man, that all sounds amazing, doesn't it? Jake Tapper seems like he's not too thrilled about it. President Donald Trump wrote on his Truth Social, "Wow, time flies. Today is the 6-month anniversary of my second term. Importantly, it's being hailed as one of the most consequential periods of any president. In other words, we got a lot of good and great things done, including ending numerous wars of countries not related to us other than through trade and or in certain cases, friendship. 6 months in is not a long time to have totally revived a major country. 1 year ago, our country was dead with almost no hope of revival. Today, the USA is the hottest and most respected country anywhere in the world. Happy anniversary. All of that is 1000% true. And it's only been 6 months. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like 7 more 6-month periods to go. This country is going to be unrecognizable in a good way by the time President Donald Trump leaves office in 2028, which brings us to the big story of the day. Barack Hussein Obama, former president of the United States, being the mastermind who ordered the intelligence community to lie, allegedly, about President Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin working together to alter the course of history in the election of 2016. That wasn't the case at all. It was Barack Obama who altered the course of history or tried to in the election of 2016. And here is Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard, who found and declassified 100 documents that prove it.
There's no question in my mind that this intelligence community assessment that President Obama ordered be published, which contained a manufactured intelligence document. It's worse than even politicization of intelligence. It was manufactured intelligence that sought to achieve President Obama and his team's objective, which was undermining President Trump's presidency and subverting the will of the American people. So yes, next week we will be releasing more detailed information about how exactly this took place and the extent to which this information was sought to be hidden from the American people, hidden from officials who would be in a position to do something about it. And that's really the point here that I think is most important, Maria, and you said it in your opening. Accountability is essential for the future of our country, for the American people to have any sense of trust in the integrity of our democratic republic. Accountability, action, prosecution, indictments for those who are responsible for trying to steal our democracy is essential for us to make sure that this never happens to our country again.
By the way, props to Tulsi Gabbard for correctly identifying it as a democratic republic, but then she went on to talk about it as a democracy, so she gets that point taken right back off. But this is true. So basically what happened was Barack Obama's intelligence agencies found that there was no collusion with Russia. There was no effort by Russia to try to create any kind of information or any kind of, information campaign. They weren't using bots or any kind of hackers, as had been previously reported, to try to alter the course of the election. And Donald Trump was not working with Vladimir Putin. The Russian interference in the 2016 election did not happen. It did not exist. And after President Barack Obama received that report, he sent it back, said, delete that, and come up with a report that says exactly the opposite, meaning the intelligence community was ordered by the President of the United States to falsely claim that Russia tried to interfere in the election of 2016 in order to get President Donald Trump elected. And that, I mean, if that's not treason, I don't know what is.
The intelligence community assessed, and this is what the documents detail, the intelligence community assessed essentially Russia doesn't have the tools, the capability, or the intent to try to change the outcome of the U.S. presidential election. Donald Trump pulls off a historic victory against Hillary Clinton in November of 2016. Even in the days after that election, the intelligence community continued their consistent assessment that reflected the same thing in the months leading up to the election. All of a sudden, in the early days of December, there was a president's daily brief that was drafted. This is put together by the different elements of the intelligence community that reflected that same assessment. Russia did not try to hack the election, in essence. That PDB, that document, was pulled hours before it was supposed to be published for the president to see that following morning. That document was never published until we released it yesterday. One day later, President Obama calls a meeting of his National Security Council, his top officials, to be held on what they called a sensitive topic. And the results of that meeting, which we released yesterday, and these over 100 documents that talk about in detail how President Obama and his team, he directed a manufactured piece of intelligence that detailed not if, but how Russia tried to influence the outcome of the United States election that President Trump won in November of 2016.
Barack Obama directed the United States intelligence services at his command to manufacture intelligence that proved Donald Trump colluded with Russia to change the outcome of the election. None of that happened. It was all a lie. It was a fabrication. It was basically Barack Obama trying to subvert the will of the people and overturn the election of 2016, which last time I checked is a coup, which, oh yeah, is treason, which, by the way, according to the Constitution, I think is punishable by death. But I'm not sure. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't think it actually mentions the sentence in the Constitution. I just threw that in there for fun. But this is truly the biggest scandal. And again, and now that Donald Trump's back in office, it seems like we always have, this is the biggest scandal in presidential history. It was the auto pen for a moment. The auto pen is the biggest scandal in U.S. presidential history. But then you wait a week, and now Barack Obama has an even bigger scandal in U.S. presidential history. But it beats Watergate, it beats Iran-Contra, it beats all the other stuff. I mean, this is, the corruption of Andrew Jackson and John Quincy Adams has nothing on the corruption of Barack Hussein Obama. And he may not only be our first African-American president, but he may be our first incarcerated president. If Donald Trump, the FBI, Tulsi Gabbard, and the national intelligence agencies are able to prove his wrongdoing, and if there really is justice in the world. And as Tulsi Gabbard rightly points out, this has historic implications.
The implications of this are, frankly, nothing short of historic. Over 100 documents that we released on Friday really detail and provide evidence of how this treasonous conspiracy was directed by President Obama just weeks before he was due to leave office, after President Trump had already gotten elected.
That is something that is truly amazing. In his last act of harm toward the American people, in his last abuse of power, and don't get me wrong, for 8 years this guy abused his power. I think abuse of power was his middle name. Barack Hussein Abuse of Power Obama. And in the last few weeks of his presidency, he looked at Donald Trump and said, "Oh, hell no, we're going to do whatever we can to try to stop this guy from coming to office." And that's exactly what he did, much to the chagrin of, I guess, him and his cohorts. It didn't work. And that's why President Donald Trump posted this: the Shady Bunch with Samantha Power, Susan Rice, Valerie Jarrett, James Clapper, James Comey, John Brennan, Barack Obama, and Ben Rhodes, all dressed in orange jumpsuits and holding up little signs with their names on it as if they're going to jail. That is President Donald Trump posting that on his official Truth Social and X accounts. So it looks like Donald Trump looking toward action that would bring these criminals to justice. And we all hope that happens. Look, Donald Trump has been a very effective president. And as Jake Tapper said, wow, Donald Trump has done all these incredible things. He's secured the border. He's fixed the economy. He's gone after his political adversaries, including the media. And that is true. But the media and his political adversaries aren't just political adversaries. It appears that there's evidence that could, in the future, very, very shortly in the future, prove them to be also just criminals, just common crooks who deserve to be behind bars. But immigration has been, of course, the big story of President Donald Trump's second term, and it is something that he ran on, the largest deportation effort in history, shutting down the border, making sure that no one's released into our country. And Stephen Miller was back on TV this week to remind everybody just how effective President Donald Trump has been in that aspect.
Under Biden, on a regular day, 10,000 illegal aliens would be set free into the country on a single day. In the last full month of June, under President Trump, the number of releases, 0. The number of releases the month before that, 0. The number of attempts last month, again, all of which were stopped, was just around 6,000. For the entire month, 2,000-mile border, and only 6,000 people tried, 100% were stopped, 0 got in. It is inexpressible what an achievement that is from President Trump. But the great challenge now, which President Trump is leading, is the process of finding all the criminal elements embedded throughout our country, all the terrorists embedded throughout our country, and getting them out and getting them out fast. And here's the thing. There's no book of addresses, Sean, of where all the criminals are. Biden just set them free. Everywhere, on their own, fake documents, fake names, fake identities, and free taxpayer dollars. There is no encyclopedia we can turn to figure out where they're located or where they live. This requires backbreaking law enforcement investigative work to identify and remove these criminal aliens. You just mentioned, Sean, as an example, in one law enforcement operation in San Francisco, they arrested an illegal alien who had been in and out of jail in California 67 times.
And that is something that is a huge problem. But Donald Trump is working very vigilantly to get all of these illegal immigrants out of our country. And one of the things that you'll notice is there are people all over X and all over social media reveling at how little traffic there is in California. The California highway systems have always been clogged up with traffic. It's always been unnaturally a slow moving traffic system. The highways, even though they have like 6 to 12 lanes each, are jammed. Well, now it appears that there is less congestion in California and other places with a large immigrant population because there's no longer a large immigrant population. And President Donald Trump isn't even done. He also had Howard Lutnick speak about the economy and tariffs and trade and how miraculous our trade turnaround has been in just 6 months, with all of these countries coming to the table with the tariff relief that we're getting to the tune of billions of dollars every single week. President Donald Trump and his economic team have been able to make America rich again while also turning the tables on some of our closest allies and trade partners like Canada.
We have a plan called USMCA, U.S.-Mexico-Canada Agreement. Virtually 75% of all goods coming from Mexico and Canada already come in tariff-free. The president said, look, unless you stop this fentanyl and close the border, we're just going to keep tariffs on the other 25%. And that's what he has on. So don't be confused about it. The president understands that we need to open the markets. Canada is not open to us. They need to open their market. Unless they're willing to open their market, they're going to pay a tariff. That's a simple message the president has. It's fair trade. It's reciprocal trade. Why should we have our country be wide open while theirs is closed? This is an 80-year wrong that President Trump is trying to fix, and our businesses are going to really, really enjoy it. I think the president's going to open between $300 and $400 billion of opportunity for Americans. That's 1.5%, up to 1.5% GDP growth, because the president's going to open all these markets up. Yeah. You saw it with Vietnam. You saw it with Indonesia. You're going to watch all these other countries decide if they want to do business with America. Let's just open our market up to America. America. That's opportunity that President Trump is bringing.
And that's something that he's going to continue to do. And he's not only opening up existing economies that have been closed to us, but he's opening up brand new economies like the crypto economy. And on Friday, he signed the Genius Act into law.
It's a very important act, the Genius Act. They named it after me, and I want to thank you.
Yeah. And
this is a hell of an act.
Hell of an act. That's a hell of an act. Donald Trump very excited about the future of crypto and cementing crypto as one of the preeminent trade resources and economies that has been created. And also, the most important thing about it is when you have a new economy, when you have a new billion-dollar endeavor like this, the United States of America has to be at the forefront. We have to dominate it. And Donald Trump says the Genius Act will do just that. It will make sure that America is the dominant factor in the dominant country when it comes to cryptocurrency.
This afternoon, we take a giant step to cement American dominance of global finance and crypto technology as we sign the landmark Genius Act into law. So congratulations to everybody. This is a big deal.
Yeah, a huge deal. And it is something that it was going to, like we said, transform American cryptocurrency and continue to make us the dominant factor. Donald Trump also, as you know, we get closer and closer to football season, went on Truth Social to post a couple of comments about his hometown team, the Washington Commanders, or as President Donald Trump likes to call them, the Washington Whatevers. He wrote, the Washington Whatevers should immediately change their name back to the Washington Redskins football team. There is a big clamoring for this. Likewise, the Cleveland Indians, one of the 6 original baseball teams with a storied past. Our great Indian people in massive numbers want this to happen. Their heritage and prestige is systematically being taken away from them. Times are different now than they were 3 or 4 years ago. We are a country of passion and common sense. Owners, get it done. But Donald Trump didn't just stop there. He didn't post just one Truth Social post about the Washington Whatevers. He posted 2. And he wrote, my statement on the Washington Redskins has totally blown up, but only in a very positive way. I may put a restriction on them that if they don't change the name back to the original Washington Redskins and get rid of the ridiculous moniker Washington Commanders, I won't make a deal for them to build a stadium in Washington. The team would be much more valuable and the deal would be more exciting for everyone. Cleveland should do the same with the Cleveland Indians. The owner of the Cleveland baseball team, Matt Dolan, who is very political, has lost 3 elections in a row because of that ridiculous name change. What he doesn't understand is that if he changed the name back to the Cleveland Indians, he might actually win an election. Indians are being treated very unfairly. Make Indians great again. And then in parentheses, he wrote, MIGA. It's one of my favorite. I think make Indians great again is one of my favorite things that President Donald Trump has ever written anywhere. And he's written a lot of stuff, that guy. That is, look, Donald Trump knows the power he has, and the Washington Commanders do, in fact, want a brand new stadium. They do, in fact, want a brand new stadium that I believe that there's a lot of federal dollars for. And President Donald Trump is like, you know what? We're not going to do it. If they don't change their name back to the Washington Commanders, or the Washington Redskins from the Washington Commanders, then we are not going to allow them to build their new stadium, and that would be detrimental. It's really interesting to see, and as a former Washingtonian myself, I would be thrilled to see. In the meantime, there is a lot more news to cover, and there will be a lot more news to cover as news is happening pretty much minute by minute around here. And we're going to do so with Mark Kaye Saves the Republic. It's our second daily podcast. It happens at 1 o'clock p.m. We stream it live, or if you prefer, you can go to any one of your favorite podcast platforms like Spotify or iTunes. Simply search Mark Kaye Saves the Republic. Download, subscribe, listen, and enjoy.